Hi, this is Scott Dudley from Funnel Fella Radio, and today we're going to be looking at podcast episode number 21 with the quickest and easiest way to really understand your customers. So, if you're wanting to build a long lasting business as opposed to just purely looking at short term profits, you can't underestimate how important it is to get a clear understanding of exactly how your target audience and your existing customers think. This is priceless. And from experience, when I ask a business if they've done any customer research, many often say they already know the pain points and what their customers like and what they don't like. So they're basically using guesswork to come up with what they think are the answers. And in some cases, they might be right with their assumptions. But hey, even if they are, honestly, you can never do too much customer research, as the more insights you can discover, the better. And by not being lazy and making the effort to actually find out what your customers are thinking and how they interact with your pages, you'll be able to create a business that customers will want to keep coming back and even refer new customers to you, which is obviously the ideal scenario. So with all of that in mind, here's a case study that proves an excellent example of exactly what I'm talking about here with getting into the heads of your customers. So we're going to take a look at a case study from the Hotjar website. This is with a company called Marlin. And if we have a look at this, the question that they were sort of asking themselves was, how do you create a product that really solves your customers' problems? How do you craft a sales message that fully addresses your prospects' needs? And the team at Marlin was facing these challenges when they decided that their best business strategy would be getting inside the users' heads and to learn and emphasize with them, which is an excellent idea. So Marlin is a digital signage company. They're from the US and they're in a bit of a different niche where they produce the digital signs that you might see in a doctor's office that offer healthcare tips and other information. So it's a very specialized type of niche. And the exact technology is used in all sorts of industries, from manufacturing to hospitality. And Marlin actually produces the software and the hardware required to create do-it-yourself digital signage. So rather than actually creating the signage for their customers, they're providing software where the customers can do it themselves. Okay, so the team at Marlin wanted to understand exactly what the users were doing on different pages of their site so that they could build a seamless user experience and ultimately deliver products that customers would love to use. And so they decided to use Hotjar to find the answers. So one of the sort of worries that they had was that they didn't know whether it actually made sense to spend time and energy implementing and learning the Hotjar software to do the testing. But after using Hotjar, they changed their mind. So the product manager here has said that we chose to take the time to learn Hotjar no matter what, because we saw the value in what it could bring us. I couldn't have imagined at the time how much value it would bring us after being a customer for over a year. So 18 months later, it's a tool we not only use for user experience, but for support, marketing initiatives, surveys, customer interviews, product decisions, presentations to our sales team, and communication to our entire company on how people use our product. So that's a pretty comprehensive list of all the different uses for a piece of software like Hotjar. Now, obviously, you don't have to use Hotjar, but Hotjar is the one that I recommend that you use. But there are plenty of other alternatives as well. So anyway, getting back to this case study with Marlin, they had, what was it, three main challenges here, all right? So the first challenge was to be able to spot and fix bugs quickly in their software. So when users report bugs in the software, the team uses Hotjar to review session recordings. So That way they can understand exactly where the problem is occurring. And previously, without Hotjar, they'd have to actually reproduce the issue themselves, which would take a whole lot longer. So by referring to these session recordings, they can actually see exactly what users are doing on the site, where the friction is being caused, the issues that they're having, and that way they can see exactly what's going on in the mind of a user. So that's priceless feedback to be able to see how users react to the software. So they're saying here the team at Marlin relies on session recordings a lot. And there's a win here that they shared where they're saying that they released a new feature and were able to see a customer navigate right to a specific part of the feature we highlighted in a user email. In most applications, there is a veil of secrecy because you really don't know how users use your app beyond speaking to them or using other analytics tools. We literally saw the fruits of our labor today. So that's sort of the point that I'm making here, is that you can literally see exactly what people are doing on your site. So, it's pretty exciting to get that feedback and the insights into is your website or your software, is it user friendly or not? So that was the first thing that they used it for, was the session replays. And then challenge number 2 was to build empathy to create superior products in UX or user experience. So they're saying here that the product manager makes a habit of watching Hotjar session recordings. Every Friday he sits down and watches 30 minutes of recordings over a cup of coffee, but it doesn't end there. So just looking at that, I mean, you don't have to be spending a lot of time. You don't have to spend all day to watch these recordings. Even if you just watch 30 minutes once a week, you'd be able to come across things that are happening, multiple times, and you discover things that you never were even aware of. So after they identify common problems in the customer flow, the recordings are then shared with the development team, and suddenly the devs can then emphasize with users in ways that were impossible before. Not only that, but also when they launch new features, they can also see how customers benefit from their changes firsthand. So that is priceless feedback for a software company. All right, but even if you're not a software company, you'd still be able to use these recordings to see how customers are interacting, let's say, for example, with your order pages. Or let's say the form on an order page, if customers are continually getting confused with an order form because they're not sure what they're supposed to be typing in. I mean, that's a common problem that a lot of people aren't aware of, particularly if you're not using labels on forms. Then if you're using placeholder text where all you can see is the placeholder text, as soon as you put your cursor in the field, then the placeholder text disappears, and quite often the user can get confused with what they're actually supposed to be typing in. So that's just an example of what you may come across that you would have never thought of unless you actually saw it happening. So that's the second one. And then they're also saying here that our developers don't talk to customers. Showing them Hotjar recordings of user sessions makes them empathetic when our users stumble and gives them a sense of pride when they see a user complete a task they just worked on. So that's another good point. So since Marlin is a digital signage company, they go a step further, and they also use the session recordings on their own internal displays for the whole company to see. And that way everyone can understand the challenges that users are facing. And they've got here a example of a big, huge TV screen in, looks like a conference meeting room, where they can all sit down and watch the recordings. So that's the second challenge. And then the final challenge was creating a compelling sales message. So the session recordings also help Marlin identify common customer roadblocks. And by solving these problems, they're able to carve out the selling points that make their products special. So obviously you would, if you're watching a lot of these recordings, like I was saying, you would see patterns and you'd see things that are happening more than once, and you would see that the customer roadblocks where they're having trouble getting to the next stage of achieving their objective, whatever that might be. And these recordings are just absolutely invaluable to be able to see exactly what's going on. Then another comment here, as product usage grew within the app, we were able to back up anecdotal evidence of what users did and quantify how long it would take them to complete basic flows. This became a major point we highlighted to our sales team as a product differentiator in competitive situations. So once again, it's just showing you how useful it was for them as a software company to see exactly what's going on. So that's pretty much the end of the case study. But as you can see, if you're using these sorts of tools, it enables you to discover lots of things that you'd never even be aware of without them. And that's the whole point of sitting down and watching these session recordings. Obviously, it's not as exciting as watching a movie or something, but it is worth the time to sit down and actually see what's going on from the eyes of your customers. So this is exactly how you keep optimizing and improving the experience for your customers based on their feedback and behavior, instead of just assuming you already know everything about your customers. So if you're not using session recordings yet, hopefully today's episode has sort of motivated you to at least check it out. With Hotjar, they have a free trial, so really there's no excuse to not at least give this a shot. Implement it on your funnel and start watching the recordings to see where customers are having issues with either understanding what you're trying to get the user to do, or even understanding the sales message. Or sometimes another good example could be where you've got a button on the page and customers don't even realize it's a button, so they're not clicking on the button because it doesn't look like a button. If you're watching these recordings, then you'll be able to see that, hey, why didn't they click on the button? Maybe it's because they don't even know it's a button. So anyway, that's pretty much all I've got for today. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch up with you next time. Bye for now.